Inimba full episode review, July 30, 2026. Can Portia help Mawethu? Umgidi. If you thought last week's episode of Inimba left you with your mouth open, wait until you hear what went down in tonight's episode, because between a mother who refuses to let go of her son's memory, a boyfriend who is quietly selling out his own family, and a pregnancy announcement that nobody saw coming, this is easily one of the most emotional hours the show has given us this year. Stay with me till the end because I am breaking down every single scene, every hidden motive, and every look on these characters' faces that tells you there is more coming. We open tonight's episode at the Zondo house, and the mood is heavy before a single word is even spoken. The family is getting ready for a graduation celebration, but this isn't just any graduation. It's the graduation of a young man whose late brother should have been standing right there next to him, and that absence is the emotional center of the entire episode. Mawethu, the mother, has been carrying grief for a long time now, and this episode makes it painfully clear that healing is not a straight line. She tells the family that she is strong enough to attend the graduation, that she does not have a problem being there, but anyone watching her face can see that she is talking herself into it more than she actually believes it. She starts speaking to a photograph of her late son as though he can hear her, telling him about the day, almost inviting him to the ceremony in spirit, and it's one of those quiet scenes that hits harder than any shouting match could. This is where Portia steps in, and it's really her role in this episode that gives the title its meaning. Portia has always been the one who tries to hold this family together when everyone else is either too angry or too broken to do it themselves, and tonight she takes on the job of trying to help Mawethu get through the day without falling apart in front of everyone. She doesn't push her, she doesn't lecture her about grief or tell her how she should be feeling, she simply stays close, watching for the moment when Mawethu might need someone to quietly pull her aside. It's a small, human kind of support, and it says a lot about Portia's character that she notices what other people in the house have missed, because everyone else is so focused on the party itself that they don't see how much Mawethu is struggling underneath the surface. Meanwhile, the rest of the family is dealing with their own tension about the celebration. There's a real disagreement happening about how big this graduation party should even be. Some of them want a full celebration, something loud and proud to mark the achievement, while others feel like throwing a huge party is disrespectful given everything the family has been through with their loss. This is a conversation a lot of viewers are going to relate to, because grief doesn't wait for convenient timing, and families are often torn between wanting to celebrate life and feeling guilty for celebrating at all. The show doesn't give us an easy answer here either. Some family members insist the celebration must go on because life has to continue, while others feel the timing is wrong, and honestly both sides make a fair point, which is what makes this such compelling television. Now let's talk about Lwando, because his storyline this episode is where things get really tense. If you've been watching Inimba for a while, you know that Lwando has been trying to work his way back into the family business, back into the tech company that his father built, and tonight we see just how complicated that road back really is. Lazarus, who has been positioning himself as a powerful figure inside the company, is not making this easy for him. Lazarus seems to enjoy having leverage over the Zondo family, and there's a strong sense that he takes pleasure in watching them struggle, almost as if regaining control of pieces of that company is personal to him and not just business. When the topic of Lwando returning to work comes up, Lazarus is the one pushing back hardest, and Zolika is clearly uneasy about the whole situation too. She doesn't trust that Lwando coming back will be simple or clean, and honestly, given what we've seen from Lazarus so far, her instincts might be right. Here's where the episode gets really juicy though. There's a mole inside the company, someone who has been leaking information, and the pressure is building to figure out who it is. Lazarus, ever the manipulator, starts putting pressure on people close to him, essentially trying to throw blame around instead of taking responsibility himself. He approaches the situation in a very cold, calculated way, suggesting to the people around him that maybe it's easier to let someone else take the fall, to let someone else be suspected, rather than deal with the truth head-on. It's a classic Lazarus move if you've watched this character develop, always protecting himself first, always thinking several steps ahead of everyone else in the room. The tension between him and the Zondo family keeps escalating, and you can tell the show is building toward a much bigger confrontation, possibly even a reveal about who has actually been feeding information outside the company. This mole storyline puts Mawethu in an incredibly difficult position. Her relationship with Wandel has always been complicated, and tonight it becomes even more strained because she finds herself caught between loyalty to him and loyalty to the truth. There are hints throughout the episode that she may know more than she's letting on, and there's a real sense of guilt sitting on her shoulders. The writers do a great job here of not making her purely a villain or purely a victim. She's a woman who has to choose between protecting someone she cares about and doing what's right, and that's never a simple decision, especially when money and family business are involved. Some fans online have already started calling her selfish for the choices she's making, but I think it's more nuanced than that. She's scared, and fear makes people do complicated things. Now let's shift to a much lighter but equally important storyline, because tonight we also get some real emotional relief with Yulimus's pregnancy update. She's at the doctor with Zolani, and the doctor asks if they want to find out the gender of the baby. This scene is honestly one of the sweetest moments in the whole episode. Yulimusa is hesitant, she wants to know but she's also nervous about knowing, and there's a really tender back and forth between her and Zolani about whether to find out now or wait for the surprise later. It's a nice contrast to all the heaviness happening with the Zondo family drama, and it reminds you that even in the middle of all this tension, life keeps moving forward for other characters too, new beginnings happening right alongside old wounds. Mawethu is also very present in this storyline, clearly emotionally invested in what happens with this baby, and there's a sense that the family is holding on to this pregnancy as something hopeful, something to look forward to after everything else that has gone wrong recently. Back at the graduation itself, things start to come together in a really moving way. As the ceremony gets closer, Mawethu starts talking more openly about her son, and you can see Portia staying close by her side the entire time, ready to step in if things get too overwhelming. There's a moment where Mawethu takes out an old picture and starts talking to it as though her late son is standing right there with her, ready to celebrate alongside his brother. It's heartbreaking to watch, but it's also beautifully written, because it shows grief not as something that disappears with time, but as something that people learn to carry differently. Hlathi, who has been somewhat dismissive of Mawethu's mental state in earlier episodes, finally seems to soften a little here, showing real concern for how much she is struggling, which suggests we might see more compassion from that character going forward. There is also a smaller but very telling moment where one of the younger family members tries to do something kind for Mawethu, a small gesture meant to make her feel included and remembered, but it doesn't quite land the way it was intended. It's a good reminder that even well-meaning gestures can miss the mark when someone is dealing with grief, and instead of comforting her, it almost brings back old wounds that the family thought had already healed. This is one of those subtle details that makes Inimba stand out from other dramas, because it doesn't pretend that grief is neat or predictable. Sometimes the people trying hardest to help are the ones who accidentally cause the most pain, simply because there is no perfect way to handle loss. As the episode moves toward its final act, the tension around Lazarus and the missing information at the company reaches a boiling point. There's a confrontation brewing between him and Zondo, one that feels like it has been building for weeks now. Zondo is starting to question whether Lazarus can really be trusted, whether his loyalty to the family business is genuine or whether he's simply been using his position to gain power for himself. Lazarus, for his part, doesn't back down. He seems almost amused by the accusations, confident that he holds enough leverage to protect himself no matter what happens. This sets up what feels like a major turning point for the show, because if Zondo finally decides to move against Lazarus, the fallout is going to affect everyone connected to the company, including Wandel's chances of ever fully returning to work there. By the end of the episode, We're left with Wandel clearly frustrated and hurt by how things are unfolding. He feels betrayed, not just by Lazarus but by the slow, complicated way his own family seems to be handling the situation. There's a real sense that he wants to fight for his place back in the business, but he's also exhausted by how many obstacles keep getting placed in front of him. Whether that frustration pushes him to make a rash decision in the coming episodes remains to be seen, but based on how the show has built his character so far, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him take some kind of drastic action soon. So where does that leave us heading into next week? We've got Mawethu slowly finding her footing again, with Portia quietly supporting her through one of the hardest days she's faced in a long time. We've got Yulimisa and Zoloni stepping into a new, hopeful chapter with the pregnancy, even as the family around them deals with so much conflict. We've got Mawethu caught in an impossible position between the man she loves and the truth she may be hiding. And we've got Lazarus, as calculating and dangerous as ever, sitting right at the center of a storm that is about to get a whole lot bigger. Honestly, this episode did a fantastic job of balancing the emotional family drama with the ongoing business conflict, and it never felt like one storyline overshadowed the other. The writers clearly know how to use quiet, personal moments, like Mawethu talking to her son's photograph, to hit just as hard as the bigger dramatic confrontations happening around the company. That's what keeps Inimba feeling grounded even when the plot gets complicated. Let me know in the comments what you think is really going on with Mawethu and whether you believe she already knows who the mole is. Do you think Portia's support is finally going to help Mawethu heal, or do you think this grief storyline is only going to get heavier before it gets better? And what about Lazarus? Do you think Zondo finally has enough to expose him, or is he still 10 steps ahead of everyone in that house? Drop your predictions below, like this video if you enjoyed the breakdown, and subscribe so you don't miss next week's review, because based on how tonight ended, Inimba is about to get even more intense.